daisy chains. Can't seem to recall my true given name. I see my footprints, how they come, how they go. Was that yesterday?
Welcome to the social-engineer.org podcast number 50. The silence means that Dave is once again not with us because he's probably recovering from DerbyCon, which just ended this weekend, and none of us were there, right, ladies?
Nope, unfortunately not.
We're not.
Yeah, we were not there. But we're all here, and that's maybe we're not recovering from DerbyCon, we're recovering from other things. So we have with us Ping Look. How are you, Ping?
I'm great. How are you?
Doing wonderful. Actually, it's a beautiful day here today. And, of course, Michelle Fincher.
Michelle is quickly growing a wonderful fan base among the students that take the class.
Yes, she is.
Hello, students.
A very nice fan base. So let's see, what do we have going on this month? We did miss Derby. All joking aside, I was sad about that. I've been following the Twitter feeds and letting tears stream down my cheeks as I was realizing all the fun that I was missing there. But it looks pretty. Looks like it went really well. A lot of the speeches coming up online, so we can watch those on the derbycon.com website. If you weren't able to make it like us and you're interested in checking out some of the speeches, it looks like Iron Geek is pretty quick about getting them all up on the site. You can just check the DerbyCon site and find the links there for the videos. Also, we're almost done. Going to make this announcement. We can do this, Michelle, right? We're almost done with the SECTF report from DEF CON.
No one will be happier than me.
Yes. It's very possible.
Donations will be accepted.
Yes. Donations for Michelle's vacation will be accepted at social-engineer.org. Yes.
All minimum donations must be $100.
Yes, minimum donation $100, and we guarantee that at least 5% of it will make it to Michelle.
Yes, and we will send a wonderful picture, a portrait of Michelle, hand autographed by her to you as a thank you.
Oh, that's actually a really nice idea.
It's worth the $100.
A hand-taken picture of Michelle, autographed, all for $100, and she gets to go on vacation because Michelle has spent almost her whole life since we came back from Vegas writing this report, analyzing the details, working through all the numbers, and I really honestly going to say this, all joking aside, the report is the best that we've had so far in the 5 years of this competition. Really a lot of great detail, pinpointing the different areas that we were able to analyze and look through for the competition. So we're excited. We'll be releasing that hopefully, we'll definitely in October. So as this podcast is out, we'll be looking forward to the announcement there. Now, with that being said, the DEF CON CTF just could not have happened without our sponsors. So a quick mention of our sponsors. First of all, Ace Hackware. Those guys are awesome. If they gave us the prize packages, really helped us to put together some excellent prizes that the contestants are probably having fun with as we speak. NetSparker, they came in and sponsored the CTF, helping us out with the cost, defraying some of them, as well as Trusted Sec. Dave, you're not here to hear us say nice things about you, but excellent help with Dave and the group there, not only setting the competition up, but also helping us defray a lot of the costs. And then our two top-tier sponsors, Wombat Securities, which has just been wonderfully supportive and really patient with us and really helping promote the CTF, as well as Pindrop Security. So we're really happy to have all of those folks supporting us and helping us out with the CTF. We look forward to next year. We got some big plans for it, so we'll be announcing those throughout the year. Let's see, what else? We got the Skydog CTF coming up. Skydog Con, our first year going out there. That is at the end of October out in Nashville, Tennessee. A nice little family type of con. And it will be our first time running the Social Engineering Capture the Flag at a different con. So we have some different things going on. It's going to be all Tennessee-based companies. And we're not splitting it up by gender or anything. We're just going to see how it runs, a one-day version of the Capture the Flag. And We had 10 contestants, which was a nice round number, and one got called off because of work, cannot make it. So we have one open slot from the people that we chose. So if you are willing to join the CTF there, say head over to the social-engineer.org site, shoot me an email, Logan@LOGAN, and get an email over to me, and we'll get you in the competition before we close the doors there. Okay, Michelle, what am I I'm forgetting training, aren't I?
Yes, we'll do a quick plug for training.
Go right ahead. Everyone wants to hear you do it anyway, right?
Okay, well, I guess if you haven't already heard, we do offer a 5-day social engineering for pen testers training course, and the great thing about it is that although we originally intended it for folks who are into pen testing for their companies, it is really evolved into a course that is great for anyone interested in the area. We get people from all walks of life that are students with us, and we hear back from them on a regular basis on how much that it sort of helped them in their daily activities. So we would absolutely welcome having you as a student in our course. And I think, Chris, I don't know if you wanted to introduce new pricing structure at this time, but...
Yeah, I will. So we have our first course for 2014, which is in February, 10th through 14th in Orlando, Florida. So you can sign up for that. May 19th through the 23rd is going to be in Amsterdam. And then we're going to have a West Coast one. We're not announcing the exact location yet because we're not sure. But that's going to be somewhere in the July-August time frame. And then November 3rd through 7th and Reston, Virginia area. So what we had just announced and set up on the site is tiered pricing. So you can get some early bird pricing if you sign up between the launch, which is now, and up to 90 days before any course date is closed. And then after we hit that 90-day mark, we're going to raise the price a little bit up until about the 45-day mark, and then anything beyond the 45-day mark, we're going to raise the price again. So it's a good motivation right now at the early bird pricing to get into the course at $3,500 for any one of those courses. And keep in mind that our seating is limited. We're cutting them off at 20 for the course. So with this much advance warning and notice, we're sure that we'll fill those seats. We hope to see you there.
And it's good for 40 CPEs.
That's true. CPEs, if you have a CISSP or any other continuing education certification, you can use the course towards that. And you can check that out on social-engineer.com. Just click the training link up top under training and then SE for Pen Testers 5-Day, and you can get all the details in there. Okay, now let's get to the fun stuff. Our guest for today. So, our guest is Elizabeth Tracy. She is a professional therapist and has studied psychology for her whole life. So she just retired, but her area of expertise was working with, that's kind of a sad topic, but she was mainly working with children who have been abused or have had worse things happen to them through their childhood and didn't know how to cope with those situations. So she's spent her life helping these kids, and we thought, wow, what a great opportunity to talk to someone who has probably had to use much of the skills that we talk about as social engineers on herself as well as her, for a positive way, on her clients. So we're going to get her on now and chat with her a little bit about this topic. Okay, we're with our guest, Elizabeth Tracy. Liz, it's so nice to have you on the show today.
Thank you.
So maybe to start off, you can just, I gave a little introduction about you, but maybe you can just tell us a little bit about yourself and maybe a little bio, like what you've done with your career so far.
I started out as a school teacher and really enjoyed that, dealt with education and students that had difficulty learning. And then I found that I really enjoyed working with the families. And the teaching part of it was just a way for me to do what I really enjoyed, which was to work with families and the family interaction. I love that part of it. So I decided to go back to school and got a degree in mental health counseling. And just found my way. I've just dealt with families, and whatever came my way, I found it interesting. Ultimately, new things all the time. I never lost my interest. It was constantly learning. It's been a really good experience.
Your focus mainly during your career as a counselor was helping kids that had pretty bad lives, right?
Well, it was. I saw a lot of children who had difficulties and who really had pretty grim lives. But essentially, it was working with families, because in order to help the children, you had to work with a family. So some of it was learning how to be realistic about how much could be done within the family framework, and also contacting other agencies, for instance, or other people in the community, and just trying to do the best that I could within possibility for each child. I had to learn my own limitations.
So how did you do that? I mean, I would imagine that as you're sitting there and you're hearing some of these stories, some of them could get pretty bad. How did you remain positive for yourself, and how did you keep focused on the person that you were dealing with and not the horrible stories that you had to hear?
Well, first of all, there needed to be an honesty, and in order to have the honesty from the person, if they're telling me a horrible story, they had to feel safe with me and had to trust me, know what my boundaries were, and I had to learn to detach. And it did take me a while to learn to detach, and that is, in order to help people, I couldn't get sucked into the emotion that was going on, because then I wouldn't be as effective in helping them.
But didn't that make you feel burned out after a while? I mean, you're constantly having to control your own emotions as well as try to evaluate the person you're dealing with and then come up with a solution to help them cope.
The burnout part, or my measure for myself, was if I started to have negative thoughts, if I start thinking, yeah, you are really a terrible mother or father, if I started to have those thoughts, then I knew it was time for me to take some time for myself. I needed to get my perspective back in order to be able to help the person, because ultimately my job was to understand where the individual was coming from. And I do believe that there is reason for, even when people are horrid and they might tell me some despicable things about themselves, that if you go back into their history and if you listen, it will begin to make sense to you based on that person's history. So I kind of reframed it and learned as I matured that this was a very interesting story. I was going to learn something from this person, because I didn't understand why somebody would behave in this way, but this person was going to help me understand. And that proved to be true, because I learned from my clients. And I don't think I've ever met anybody that didn't teach me something. Everybody had something to teach me. And I had to let go of my more rigid ideas of what was right or wrong, what was good and bad, and reframe it into, I need to understand this person and where this person is coming from.
Wow.
So I think that's a great point, Elizabeth. Based on sort of research that I recall, it's not necessarily the background of the counselor that is predictive of therapeutic success. It has to do with the relationship It's more strongly associated with the relationship that the therapist builds with the client. And so clearly your ability to build rapport with your clients was really important. Now, do you have, is there an aspect that you feel is most important in building that relationship?
Yes, I go back to trust and safety, and I like the question, how do you build rapport? And I came up with, again, yes, trust and safety. And I had somebody recently who is very close to me that taught me something. And I was talking about a good friend. I was suggesting that they go to a therapist, that they seek marital counseling. And this individual, who is very prominent and successful as far as the world would see, and comes off as being extremely confident, told me that he was afraid that he would never go to a therapist, he would never seek marital counseling because he didn't want to lose control, and he didn't know what would happen in a marital session. He didn't know what the process was, and he said, I will never put myself in a situation where I don't know what the outcome will be. And that really hit me because I thought, these people walk in, and basically they have to trust on some level that this person is not going to hurt them. And so that I see the first step, and children have taught me a lot, and I always like working with children because they bring it down to a very basic level. And the children who taught me the most were the kids that were most uncooperative, because I would have to figure out how to let that child know that I was safe, that I wasn't going to hurt he or she. And sometimes that would take several sessions of just sitting and saying nothing while they played and having toys out so that they could get used to me and the environment and see, because I knew that child, and I'm thinking right now in my mind of a 3-year-old child, I knew that child was testing me to see what I was going to do. And if I scared that child, or if I came at that child, I would not be able to, I probably would not be able to help that child. So I had to wait and see the pace of the child and then transfer that to adults. So whenever I got in a situation with an adult where I'd just be pulling my hair out because they were difficult, they were contrary, they were argumentative, I think, okay, what is this person doing? If this person were 3 years old, what would you do? And then I would do the same thing with the adult. Wait. And again, that rapport. And as an individual myself, as a person myself, you'd better doggone well believe I'm not going to share my deepest, darkest secrets with somebody unless I know I can trust that person.
Right. So
you brought out trust and safety as building the key components to rapport building for you. It makes sense when you're talking about a kid, right? To me, everything you just said, it makes perfect sense. But now, we're talking about an adult who maybe had the experiences through a longer period of life and having things not go so well for them. And I can understand that guy who's saying, I don't know if I want to go and pour out my heart to some person who may then reject me or say something not nice. So how do you make quick work of that? How do you make quick work of building trust with a person that maybe has had a longer life experience? You're not just going to sit there and stare at them for a couple of sessions, right?
No, but it's because they'll be more verbal, because what's going on with a 3-year-old is nonverbal. But verbally, you basically do the same thing. They throw something out, and they watch to see what your reaction is going to be. And there is an honesty component, and I thought about this in relationship to the fact that the individual has to feel trust and safety. That means that I also have to have a certain amount of integrity and honesty. I can't be a fake, but I can be diplomatic so that if somebody tells me something that I personally might find repugnant, something that they've done, and for instance would be I have had people admit to me that they have abused children. And that is repugnant to me, but at the same time, that person needs to take responsibility for it. But if I immediately am judgmental, or if they pick up on negative vibes from me, then that's going to be the end of the relationship right there. So that the idea is that, okay, I don't approve of that behavior, for instance, or I might say something, I won't say, oh, that's all right. But how do you feel about that? What do you think? Do you think, what do you want to do about this? How has this affected your life? I want to know where they're coming from. And my honesty to them is I want to understand. And adults will pick up on your honesty because I do want to understand.
So, I didn't mean to cut you off. It's a fascinating topic because actually in our practice we have a course that we talk to people about going out and eliciting information from total strangers. And one of the things we say is that you can't always pick your perfect target. So this sounds a little malicious, but sometimes if you're doing a job for a company, you have to just deal with the people that are there in front of you, and they may have beliefs or practices that you don't agree with. It may not be as strong as what you just said, not someone who's like a pedophile, but you may be anti-gun, and you're dealing with people who are part of the NRA. And we say you have to control your nonverbal body language as well as your reaction to what they say, because that judgmentalness can come off as something that will turn the person off right away, and they'll go a totally different direction, and then you just killed the engagement. So how, it sounds to me like you're saying to control that, you have to create in yourself a curiosity to understand everyone's belief system.
Yeah, you want to reframe it, and it's not that you don't want to try to make them believe what you believe, because you're not going to do that. But you will benefit from knowing how that person thinks and to see it as something that's beneficial to you. Let me understand this, because if I understand this person, I'm going to know more. I'm going to be able to do my job better. I'm going to have more options in the future, because if you keep a narrow view, you have to walk into, I think, the worst neighborhoods. If you're going to make a change in the world, so to speak, you can't do it from an ivory tower. And I liked what was, I don't know if it was Ping or Michelle that said earlier, the idea of being on a very human level where the people are. This is what's happening in our world. Not just reading books about it. Knowledge is helpful if you can use that knowledge in interacting. But knowledge in and of itself, if you can't plug it in, is kind of a waste. So that the idea of how am I going to elicit information? Well, I'll tell you how you elicit information is that you listen and show that you are interested, and people will pick up on if you're interested. There's where the burnout comes in. because they'll also pick up. I know I do. I mean, if I go into a doctor's office and he asks me questions and I know he's not, he doesn't care what I'm answering, I know that. How do I know it? Yeah, body language, tone. I also know this person seems to be interested in me.
Yeah.
So I do have a question, though, because as you're having discussions with your clients, do you feel that some of them, in order to try to establish trust with you in some manner, say things for shock value, things that are clearly untrue or which may turn out to be untrue?
Absolutely. And as far as being true or not, it doesn't matter when I'm establishing the relationship, because I know that I'm going to still learn from whatever they give me, because each person will give me something different. And for instance, if somebody says something for shock value, then it's like, well, why does this person want to shock me? Or why would this person think that this particular information is shocking? It still is about them. What they choose is about them.
You don't try to figure out if it's false or not. You don't really care. You're still having that. Your base principle is curiosity in the person.
And this is, again, I know that eventually I'll figure out what's going on. And I also have a curiosity. Gee, I wonder what the real story is, so that I do have a genuine interest. And I'm oftentimes thinking, well, I know this isn't true, but why is this person telling me this? And adolescents are a perfect example, because they will, I pretty much assume that probably 50% of what they tell me is not true.
So what's their motivation, though? Why?
Adolescents that is the most wonderful and the most horrible time in anybody's life, because they don't know who they are. So they're throwing out all kinds of stuff. They're who they wish they were, and I guess that would be part of it, is the stories that they tell. They wish it were true. They wish that they said that. I said thus and so, or I did thus or so, or I'll get a young man, or I did. I keep forgetting I'm retired, but I would get a young man in that would tell me, about all the fights he'd been in, and I'm thinking, gee, have you ever been expelled from school? Gee, that's funny. I thought kids got expelled from school if they fought in the cafeteria. But I just say that, and then I just let it drop. I don't say, that can't be true. Instead, I just and then eventually what I'm actually doing is the same thing as I do with a 3-year-old, is that I'm letting them know that I'm not going to back them into a corner. I let them know, gee, I think that's funny, but I don't say you're a liar. I just say, gee, that's funny. Usually kids get expelled from school for that. So that kid now knows, and after repeated times will know, I am not going to humiliate or shame him. So that even though he tells me all of this stuff, about how big and strong he is, or whatever it is that he's trying to project, I'll accept him.
So do you think that people sometimes do that to see if they could become like a self-fulfilling prophecy, like I feel pretty crappy about myself, so I'm going to tell you things that you should reject and point and laugh, and that way I can prove to myself that I'm pretty crappy.
Because some of it can be, like the self-loathing, and it's like, or it can be honest. I'm going to tell you all the bad things about myself, and you are really going to be disgusted with me. And so that's another test in another area. But usually adolescents will, it will be more fantasy stuff. It will be what they wish.
That's fascinating to me. That's fascinating because it's so simplistic in essence. If you think about it, it's probably very complex in the way it works, but how do you get that curiosity? I mean, how do you develop in yourself the curiosity for other people's belief systems, especially if they're so in opposition to what you believe?
I don't know. I just know that, now I haven't. Not all people do. So that if you're going to work with people, and if you're going to work with people in stressful situations, I think you have to have that curiosity, or if you're working in anything adversarial, anytime you're working with negative human behavior, I think there has to be an interest, and the reality is we all have. It's a part of all of us. Okay, so I'm going to reframe that. Okay, how do you get that interest? Well, I'm having interest in you, because what that person has, you have too. It might be smaller. It might be so minute that you don't recognize it, or you have other parts of you that have become prominent. And I know I have said to you, Chris, that I'm grateful for the dark side of myself, because it helps me to identify with other people who are struggling. And I've come to the belief that you have a choice. And some people don't have that. Dark side is so small, they're not even aware of it. But the reality of it is, and if you get into literature, I like Wally Lamb's books, because he really gets into the dark side of human nature and makes it human. We have those parts, but we don't have to act on them. Therefore, if you're dealing with somebody who is, let's say, a sociopath, or what we call a sociopath, to know that you have a piece of that too. And in order to deal with somebody like that, you have to be able to have a basic understanding, or they're not going to have any respect for you. So that to be able to talk to them on their level, and to see the world in a sense from their level, so that if you tell a sociopath, oh, you're going to hurt somebody's feelings, or that's not good, or that's not going to mean anything to them. But if you tell them, you know what, you would be more successful if you acted like a good guy, if you were generous, if you were kind. Never mind if you're feeling it. If you act that way, you will have more power with people. I mean, that would be an example, kind of an extreme example. But the idea, again, to just know that in order to make changes, you've got to be able to, kind of get down to the nitty-gritty with people.
So, obviously that's the goal of any kind of therapy, right, is to help people learn to make those changes in their coping mechanisms, or how they deal with the stress and things like that. So what principles of influence, or how do you go about doing that? So you establish rapport by having this natural curiosity. You convince them that you trust them and that you're going to be non-judgmental. And now you're in a relationship. You're talking with people. You're listening to their problems, and some of them may be very disturbing. How do you now convince them that they need to make these changes?
You don't convince them, but they'll listen to you and consider what you say if they know that you respect them. And again, I'll go back to my teaching days, and I had some, many times children who have learning problems also have behavior problems. And those kids, and again, I didn't know it at the time because I didn't process it in that way. I didn't think the way I do today. But those kids would do what I wanted them to do. Why? Well, it wasn't on the first day. It was because they had come to respect me. How did they come to respect me? They respected me because I respected them. I didn't get in power struggles with them. They could predict me. They felt safe. And at that time, I thought that I had magical powers. But I now see I didn't have magical powers at all. It was trust. It was trust. And if people trust you, and if they know that you like them, that you respect them, they'll do things for you that they might not do for somebody else. But when you get into the adult person, it comes on the level for a child. You can get that to occur in the immediate, but in an adult, then you also use the cognitive with, would you try this? I know that you think that this is, just a bunch of booga, but would you try this for a week? And let's see. Is it rational and logical? Because there's the other thing. It's got to work in the real world. It can't just be you telling somebody something, and it's all nice and it sounds good and it's politically correct. They have to see that it works in the real world. So there's where honesty comes in.
Well, I guess I've got a follow-up question then, Elizabeth, because really what you're talking about is influence in sort of guiding behavior in a healthier direction. Within social engineering, we kind of assume that we know what that direction is because we have a goal to obtain in mind. And I think in counseling, it can be a little bit more, I guess, a little less defined. And so
Yeah.
do you find that you have decided the direction that you want to influence your clients, or is that something that's sort of undefined? And I think the whole philosophy about like health and healthy directions is an interesting one, and very sort of a departure from social engineering in that sense. Would you care to comment on that and how you make those kinds of decisions with your clients?
Well, there is a basic belief system which I would tell people about at the beginning, because I'm very predictable. There won't be surprises. I believe in not harming people, contributing to society, just basic decency. And if there were a personal goal, because there are personal goals, and they tell you in all of the classes, no, it's not about you, it's just about the client. Well, it is about the client, and that's where your focus is. But there's also a bigger focus, and that is we are all working within this universe and within this world. And that's part of my consciousness, is that I believe, and that's part of not burning out, I believe that what I do is worthwhile. I believe that I can help make the world a better place. And not in a narcissistic way, but rather just that each person has the ability to either contribute or not. And that comes across, I think, to clients. So that underlying, even though it's not stated, that is part of it, is that there is that idea that there is an ultimate goal, that there is this higher level.
That's so interesting to me, because as you're talking, I'm sitting there thinking, okay, in social engineering we have something called pretexting, which is you come up with your character, who I'm going to be today. And for it to work, I have to have the same concepts that you just said, which is I have to really believe it. And I have to believe in what I'm doing. Otherwise, it comes across that I have an agenda, like my agenda just to get information out of a person. And that sends up red flags. People may not realize why they feel so unhappy with you, but that unhappy feeling will rub off, and then they won't want to help you out or answer your questions. And then you have to have this curiosity. You have to have this built-in curiosity to know about people and to understand each person's story. I work with a guy named Robin who actually is the director for the FBI's behavioral analysis unit, and he does a lot of profiling of people, and he says that for him to be successful in his job, he has to really look at everyone as like their own reality TV show, right? He has to look each person as some kind of fascinating show that he wants to watch and learn about. Otherwise, his agenda comes out, and the agenda turns people off. Now, the motivation for you, of course, is way different, but it sounds like it's the same exact principles as that.
I think it is.
And then I was thinking, we had an interview with a neuroscientist named Paul Zak. He studied into this molecule called oxytocin, which I guess for years they thought was just for women when they were breastfeeding, but they found out that it's released in both males and females, and they call it the trust molecule. And he started doing research into how people can have it released and when it's released and things like that. But one of his areas of research was in the con men, and he made a really interesting comment to us, was that a con man works, he convinces you that he trusts you. And when you feel trusted by someone else, then it releases this chemical, and it makes you more trusting, and it makes you develop rapport and feel all these good feelings towards that individual. And again, totally different reasons. You're not trying to con people, but it sounds like the same philosophies, that have this natural curiosity, this trust, and that builds rapport and makes people want to listen to your counsel as well as open up and tell you the most horrible things about themselves to you.
Yeah, that's interesting. That's really.
In essence, you're a social engineer. You just didn't know it. but for all the good reasons. One of the things that we always talk about in our course, one of the things that like Michelle is kind of heavily involved in, is that the aspects of influence, the 8 principles that have been defined for influence, and we always look at those and see how they work upon humans and how they're used for both positive and negative aspects. For us to understand the negative side is helpful, because then we can use it to firm up our clients and help them realize where they can improve their security posture. But from a completely different thought, it just sounds like when I'm listening to you talk that you utilize all of these. You utilize at least many of them, even maybe at the same time, of these principles of influence to help your clients, call them, but make them feel like they want to make these changes. Because I would imagine that it's not going to be too helpful if you just give someone a whole bunch of ideas and they don't believe it. They have to almost have it so it's their idea, or that they want to adopt the ideas. It becomes something that's part of them, not just something that came from Liz, right?
Yeah, because it doesn't. That's the other part, is that it has to come from the individual. If I could have the best ideas in the world, and if somebody is not interested, it doesn't mean anything unless they have some kind of reason to want to make a change, let's say. And, or if they're looking at themselves, it still has to come from the person. I can't do anything. And there have been times when I've said, I don't think this is doing you or myself any good, because I see that the individual doesn't have a desire for any change at all. That's why court-ordered, for instance, sometimes court-ordered therapy is, then I just go back to the drawing board and say, okay, you have to come in how many times? And what do you want to accomplish? Because I don't want to spend, the next 10 weeks lecturing or preaching. So what do you want to work on? We'll work on whatever you want to work on. What do you want to change about yourself? And in a sense, there is another motivation to that, you could say, because there is a chance that individual might change his or her mind in the course of working on whatever it is we work on. So, again, I think any time that you sincerely listen and respect the other person, that there's always an opening, for growth and change.
So maybe just one more thought. You talked in the beginning about framing, and we define, and I think it's the same because the way you talked about it, it really matches how we think about it. We define framing kind of like the frame of a house, the structure that's underneath everything that makes you who you are and that could alter your perceptions of a certain situation. So how do you deal with it when you're going through tough times? Maybe you get sick, or you have an argument with your spouse, or your kids get mad at you or something, and now you have to come to work and you're not in the best frame, and you're dealing with other people's stuff. Does that affect you and your ability to have this natural curiosity, this desire to help? And if so, how do you deal with it?
Well, it could, and it can, and just little things that happen day to day, I was able to detach from. But a couple of times when I had big things going on, it was harder. And then what I did is I got therapy myself. I dealt with my stuff, and it was easy because I had somebody right there that I could talk to, because I had to take care of my stuff to make sure that I was not projecting onto the person that I was dealing with. And part of it is you are the instrument, and each person is vitally important. And number one, you take care of yourself, because if I don't take care of myself, if you don't take care of yourself, you really are not that effective with other people.
That's a really, really good point.
Well, and also, Elizabeth, the idea of framing for your clients as well. I think a lot of people come in for help because they don't really know how to do that, or they see a situation and they can't see it from a different perspective. Do you find, as social engineers, we talk about reframing situations for the individuals that we interact with in order to influence them. Do you find that you do that a lot for your clients as well, just in terms of reframing how they think about things or how they view a situation?
Absolutely. Using logic and rationality and to bring up, okay, that's one view of it. Have you ever thought of this? Or have you ever thought of this? Or maybe you could look at it this way. And for instance, one of the things I've come to believe personally is that in every crummy, lousy situation or painful situation that occurs, yes, it's lousy. No, we don't want to feel pain. No, we don't want to seek pain. But whether it's true or not, it works. And that is that I'm going to learn something from this experience. I'm going to be different. I'm going to know something that I didn't know before. Now, I've found that to be true for myself, but it also makes sense logically and rationally. You might as well look at a situation in a positive way instead of saying, oh, this is horrible, or my life is over, and because that will depress you, versus if you reframe it and say, you know what, this is a really lousy experience, but you know what, I am going to know things that I didn't know before. And I'll give you an example. I went through cancer, and it really wasn't that bad. I've got to tell you that. And it wasn't that bad for me. I didn't see it as, it was a pretty simple experience. But I learned something from it that I didn't know before. And because I'd always been an energetic person, I had always been one of those people that could do, 20 things at the same time. And I became a slug. So I had a new perspective. I could now understand the people that I saw that were chronically ill and that where I could see they could hardly move. And it's like, oh, my heavens, I know how they feel. So that it changed my response to how much do you think you can do today? Not you have to do 10 things, but what is the amount that your body will allow you to do? So that out of an experience, a personal experience, that helped me to, I think, have more understanding, more awareness for other people. But I think that that's every day offers that. I think that for all of us, no matter where you are, if you look at the world that way, you can learn from this particular experience. Or if you're not successful, let's say with a client or, and you just feel like, you know what, no matter what I do, I really bombed today. It's like, okay, that also is learning. What can I do differently? Or why did this happen? And at some point, and to me, that's exciting because that's the reframing of it. Okay, I'm going to figure this out because I failed, and I know I failed. That's something I need to know that I don't know.
I love that philosophy in life. We actually apply that very well here. I'm not sure if everyone does it in our industry, but I mean in our company, we apply that. We openly talk about, when we do training, we talk about our failures because I think you often learn more from when you fail than when you succeed. Because when you succeed, you did everything right. So there's no learning lesson except keep doing it. But when you fail, there's ways to look at it and say, hey, I did, this is why I messed up, and here's what not to do next time, and here's how to rearrange this particular situation so that doesn't happen again. And I've learned so much more from those circumstances than I have from always succeeding. I love that messaging.
And that would be a reframing, the excitement that comes from that. It's like, I'm going to learn. I'm going to figure this out. And I'm going to seek answers.
One of the things we always ask our guests, because especially this stuff, this is really fascinating, and I know that the listeners are gonna eat these topics up. But do you have any books that you recommend that are about this kind of philosophies, or anything that you've read that really helped you frame this type of thinking that maybe you can recommend to the people that are listening?
I read every self-help book I think known to man. I think they're all good. Personally, I find it hard to find any new material, so that I've been doing a lot of reading, and like I mentioned, Wally Lamb. I like Wally Lamb. I never had time to read him because he writes such long books. And even though it's fiction, it brings up aspects of human beings that are just really interesting. And from that human being's perspective. And, I would say rather than looking for the best self-help book, go to the bookstore or check out and, look on Amazon or whatever, and whatever appeals to you, because whatever appeals to you is probably going to be something that you're going to learn from. But I learn from people, and I just like to know what do you think? Or a new experience for me has been my husband and I both retired at the same time, and we didn't spend that much time together because we both had careers, and I am finding my husband to be so interesting because I'm finding all kinds of things about him that I didn't know. Because he is totally different from me. When you say, he is not interested in how other people think, and but I'm interested in how he thinks because it's giving me, because he is logical, rational, very concrete. Why do you worry about that? And he is telling me things that are fascinating to me, and he has no idea why I find them so fascinating. Like what it was like for him when he was a little boy, or and how a person that I know is different from me, how he thinks and how he frames things, so that I'm now realizing that, and this is just I'm now realizing that I didn't know who he was. But there's more to know. And he's learning from me because because I have very different ideas, and I also, even though he says he's not interested, I see changes in him as well. So, bottom line, I say, I think the best thing to do is just listen to people or ask anybody, because everybody has something to tell you that you don't know, because the way they see the world is going to be different than the way you see the world. Anyway, that's what I'm doing now.
So your books are now real people.
Yes, they are.
I have a good friend, Tom McIntosh, who's an older guy, famous jazz musician. He played with some of the greats, Count Basie and guys like that. And I asked him once how he got to be so awesome at jazz music. And he said that his philosophy when he started was to take a lesson from everyone he met, regardless if they were considered an expert or a novice. And he literally would ask people to sit with him regardless of their talent level and show him something that they just learned. And that enabled him to become one of the greatest jazz musicians that we know that's still alive today.
Yeah,
so, it's amazing. That's really great. Liz, this has been a fascinating discussion. I constantly get amazed every podcast when we have a really good guest on like yourself that how other industries and other walks of life are so similar to what we do here, just with different twists, maybe a little bit of difference and different motivation and reasons, but still fascinating to me to see the correlation between the skill sets and how we apply them. I know you're not big into tech, so I always ask this, and I think my listeners will want to hear you say it, but you don't have a website or anything, do you, that people can follow you on? Or
no.
I didn't think so, but
I started Facebook.
Yeah, well, we won't give that out because, but yeah, I understand, but it still was fascinating to have you on the show and to be able to talk to you a little bit about this, and I really appreciate your time.
Good questions, and now I'm going to look up your site and learn more because it is interesting. It is interesting.
It is. It's fascinating for us.
Okay, and thank you, and we'll talk soon.
Yeah, we'll talk to you later.
Thank you for your time, Liz. Appreciate it.
Okay, and thank you.
Have a good afternoon.
Bye.
Take care.
Okay, bye-bye.
Well, ladies,
Yeah.
my opinion, another awesome podcast.
Yep.
She's so sweet.
She really is. I don't know if I can do her job.
Well, it's hard.
Yeah, I mean, you did it to an extent. I don't know if I can do it. I mean, it's all great and good being a social engineer and having to hear, like, for a few minutes someone's disparaging comments and having to put it aside. But like listening to someone come into my office and say, hey, you know what? I like little kids, and not beat them into the ground.
Yeah.
Like to be not judgmental. And I don't know if I have that power. I would like to think that I'd be able to, but I don't know if I have it. It's just, wow. It's a strong person.
Yeah, and she sounds like she's really good, though, at dealing with burnout, because that became my issue after about 4 or 5 years. So it's something that's really important to kind of stay on top of and take care of.
Yeah, and I love the way that she uses framing. I mean, not only on herself, but on the clients.
Mm-hmm.
Just, yeah, really fascinating. I thought there was so much application there. What I really loved, and I'm going to have to apply this in the course at some point. I'll probably be using this interview in the course from now on, just so you know. I loved how she talked about gaining this natural curiosity for people. You know, if you can gain that, then people become interesting. And that is, I think, one of the things that is missing in the IT industry, is why social engineering is so hard for many people, is we're so attached to our tech that we don't really look at being interested in others, and that's exactly what makes a con man a great con man.
Right.
You look at some of the greatest con men of all times. People always talked about how charming they were and how funny they were and how witty they were. That's because they were interested in having a conversation with you.
Yeah,
Yep.
Technology puts that barrier between you. I mean, you can say, oh, I looked them up, I Googled them, or I checked out their Facebook page and their Twitter time feed and their About.me website and looked them up on LinkedIn, but that's not really engaging them.
Right.
Yeah.
Very different. And even on Twitter, it's not a real engagement because you can't see the people's facial expressions, and they've got their entire feed is still scrolling down their screen. How much attention did they give you?
That is 100% true.
Yeah, it's really different. And even Facebook, as much as I spy on my cousins, everyday lives, and I look at my friends' stuff, maybe I'll like something, maybe I'll comment, but it's not the same.
Yeah, it's not a real interaction that way.
Yeah.
Yeah, when you think, there was maybe, was it you and I, Michelle, talking about, there was a study done recently about is social media killing our human interaction,
Mm-hmm.
and it talked about like the 140 character limit, and people get so used to making short, little, quick sentences that they've lost the ability at having a conversation with another human being.
Yep.
Yeah, and there's also some research that talks about how a lot of people are happier with their online identities than they are sort of in real life. So it's a sad trend.
Yeah, they get to hide from reality, and I think about even the way we fight war, which is everything is done kind of remotely now. How many foot soldiers are actually on the ground, and so as a result, we don't actually have mechanisms in place to help support actual real soldiers that come back and are have post-traumatic stress.
Right.
It's really tough, and it's hard. It's really, really hard. I mean, most everybody's like, I'm just so busy all the time. And you think to yourself, geez, what would it be like if we actually had to sit in a room where we actually will have a conversation?
You know what's scary is our generation, us, the three of us here, we're not that old, but yet we probably could remember that.
Oh, absolutely.
Right? I mean, I remember when computers were first, when computers were first coming out. I remember that, and I remember when the internet was first introduced. And so I remember having to do my job on pen and paper. I remember having to interact with, there was no such thing as typing a report in school. That was unheard of. Everything was handwritten. Now, my daughter's school, they don't even teach cursive.
Yep.
There's no reason for it, they say.
It uses a different part of your brain. When you type versus when you write versus when you speak with your mouth, really different.
It is amazing. You look at how technology is. It's the crux of our job. If it wasn't for the influx in technology, we wouldn't have a company to talk about right now. So technology is what enables, unfortunately, it's what enables the bad guys to get away with so much so easily, and why people like us are needed. So we're happy to have the company and the job, but man, it's also interesting to look and think about how much this is affecting people just as they grow up. Our next generation, you wonder if they're going to be like how to have a conversation class in college or something, how to talk to other people.
Yeah, well, they should be having that now.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. But I think also it's probably up to the parents when they're young. I mean, I know with our kids, we do that. We do that all the time. We just at home, we make sure that they have proper interaction time with adults and kids their own age, so that way it's something that they have as part of their repertoire. Otherwise, they're going to grow up with what skill set? Not much.
Hey, Ping's got to go. We need to wrap up.
Okay, stepping off my soapbox. Thanks, Michelle, for wrecking my life.
Yep, it's my job.
Yep, that's what I pay you for.
That's what I do.
Life wrecker.
Yep.
Got the Ripper of Hearts and the Wrecker of Lives. The two titles on the podcast here.
Nice.
So, what a great podcast. Thank you, ladies, for being here, as always. I think, Ping, you really need to rag on Dave because he just totally chewed you apart last time for being late and not showing up. And
yet here he is missing again.
Here he is, yeah. So feel free to check out our websites, social-engineer.com, for all the corporate training and speaking gigs, as well as social-engineer.org for the Framework podcast and newsletters. On Twitter, I'm Human Hacker, and our corporate feed is SOC Engineer Inc. If you're into IRC, on the irc.freenode.net network, we are channel social-engineer. If you really enjoy the intro and outro music, it is Clutch. Gone Cold is the song. You can check them out. So, thanks, guys, and we will talk to you next month. See you.
My heart is gone. I'm gone cold. The path gives way to a cold winter field. The ground below, hard as steel. Beyond the hill, a distant song, but that hill keeps going on and on. My heart is gone. I'm gone cold. My heart is gone. I'm gone cold. Swan boats and daisy chains. Can't seem to recall any given name. I see the footprints, how they come, how they go. Was that only a moment or many years ago? My heart is gone. I'm gone cold. My heart is gone. I'm gone cold. My heart is gone.